Are you looking for a lighting solution that skips the bulky equipment? The new Godox MS60R lights are exactly what you need. In this video, I'm going to be taking this light into my everyday filmmaking workflow and try and test it out to see if it's truly the ultimate light for filmmakers. But before we do, let's dive into the actual features and specifications of the new Godox MS60R. One of the most convenient things about the MS60R is the fact that you can battery power them. This makes these so much more convenient than the Aperture 100D that I'll be replacing in my kit with these lights. The 100Ds are remote power only, meaning that if you're shooting somewhere that you don't have access to power, then you either have to run a generator to get these lights to turn on or have some kind of large battery option with an Edison plug. This makes it super impractical for a lot of run and gun style shoots. It's honestly my biggest gripe with the light, which was a workhorse for me for several years before I expanded my lighting package. Now that I've got these MS60Rs though, honestly, I'm gonna start leaving the 100Ds at home. Another huge benefit to these lights is the compact form factor. These lights are impressively compact and lightweight, making them perfect for filmmakers on the move.
Now, we've been working on this video for several months now, and in that time, I actually shot an entire feature film where I used the Godox MS60Rs a ton. I mean, these honestly have become workhorse lights for me and were indispensable during the shooting of candlesticks, which you'll see a lot more about in the channel over the next couple of months. But in terms of these lights being impressively compact and lightweight, we shot a scene for the film where we were in a coffee shop that it was in a downtown area, and we weren't able to bring our full lighting package into it. We actually had to park in a parking garage across the street down on like the bottom level of the parking garage. And so I had 3 crew members, my director and 2 PAs, and basically the 4 of us just manhandled the very small equipment package that we could carry ourselves up several flights of stairs, through the mall, across the street, and into the coffee shop that we were shooting in. So if I had not had these lights, honestly, I have no idea how I would have shot this scene. I mean, we probably would have had to make 2 or 3 trips carrying those bigger, bulkier lights that I would normally have. And so these lights honestly saved my butt during this shoot.
A standout feature of these lights is the Bluetooth functionality, which is a game changer, especially for solo filmmakers. Admittedly, this is a feature on most newer LED lights, and it's something that, honestly, I didn't really think that much about when I was first building out my lighting package. But when you're running and gunning by yourself or with a super small crew, not having to walk back and forth between adjusting your lights and looking at the shot on camera is a huge deal. Instead, with an app like this, you can easily tweak brightness, intensity, color temperature, all just from the camera setup itself. This not only saves time, but it also allows for fine-tuning on the fly that you might not otherwise be able to do, ensuring that your lighting is always perfect to your scene. Over the last 2 years, I've slowly transitioned from using a mix of different lighting brands to where now I really only use the Godox no-lid lights on set so that everything can be controlled from one app on my phone. Super convenient when I'm DPing or gaffing for another cinematographer. The only exception to this is my Aperture B7Cs, which initially I was hoping that I could replace with the new MS60Rs since they come with an E27 socket adapter that allows you to screw the light right into a lamp or other E27 fixture. But the light is just too big to do this in most home fixtures though, so its main functionality is more for use on a track or overhead fixture out of frame. So technically, I use all Godox no-lid lights plus a few B7Cs when I need a practical in frame. If you get the MS60Rs in the 4-pack, you also get these super nice cases to carry the lights in, plus a ton of great accessories. The softboxes are definitely a highlight for me. They pack up easily into the kit, but still allow you to boost the size of the light just a little bit to get that soft directional light that looks incredible on camera. You also get a couple Fresnel zoom lenses, collapsible diffusion, barn doors, which are super underrated, and some other cool stuff as well.
One concern I did find when testing out these lens reflectors was that when the light is set between 0 and 2%, you get just a little bit of a green tint. You can see this in the talking head footage I shot with the MS60R being used as a hair light, where it's giving just a little bit of a green tint on the light wraparound around my face. At the end of the day though, because these are full RGB color lights, this isn't really that big of a deal, because whenever you're at 1% or on the lower end of the intensity spectrum, which is where this green tint happens, you can just tint the light towards the magenta magenta a little bit, and that honestly completely removes it. So I just didn't know that when I recorded the talking head initially, but now pretty much anytime I'm operating at below 2% intensity, you got to make sure that you've got the magenta tint there happening. With the accessories, I did find that the lens reflector is brighter than the Fresnel, but the Fresnel has a smoother fall off, and you can get nearly as bright as with the lens reflector when you zoom in with it. You can attach the beam booster to it to get the brightest output from this light, but it hyper concentrates the light into a tight beam. Great for certain scenarios, absolutely, but not something I expect to get a lot of use out of, honestly. So realistically, I'd probably recommend sticking to the bare Fresnel over the lens reflector unless you're going to be taking advantage of one of the magnetic attachments. Speaking of magnetic attachments,
there's also magnets in the front of the lens reflector, which you can use to attach the hemispherical diffusion along with some other attachments. That way you can take the shine off of your talent, which comes from that harsher undiffused light. There's also a bunch of lens attachments that change the shape of the light spill, which lets you get some really cool effects like what you're seeing on screen now. And I can't really emphasize enough how convenient it is to have all 4 lights with 8 batteries and all of these accessories packed so compactly into these high quality cases. The aperture lights that I've been using for years, on the other hand, don't even come with a case, so I just end up throwing them in a duffel bag with a bunch of other stuff. But one person could literally carry the MS60Rs with all of their accessories along with a bag of small spreader stands by themselves, which is huge since this absolutely could be your entire lighting setup if you needed it to be. Let's take a second to do a demo setup and look at how you might do that. For this setup, we did a classic 3-point lighting arrangement. For our key light, we used the MS60R with the parabolic softbox to create that beautiful diffused lighting on the subject's face. This setup gives us that nice, soft, flattering look that you often see in professional films. For the fill light, we attached the Fresnel zoom lens, which increases the brightness of the light a bit and bounce it off of a wall next to the subject, achieving a nice diffused fill. The hair light was placed up high to provide a subtle backlight, adding depth and separation from the background. And with the 4th light, we raised it up on a C-stand as well and shot it over this ledge to cast a shadow on the background that looks like it could be coming from an overhead light or a skylight or something like that. This just gives the shot a little bit of texture and takes it to the next level. Now, normally if I was lighting a scene with my full 1-ton lighting package, I probably would have used an M300 Bi as the key and then another one as the fill. This would have let me match the exposure of the bright window behind the talent. But since these lights aren't quite as bright, we just blackened out the window using some trash bags and gaff tape, and then set the exposure of the shot according to the brightness that we were able to achieve fairly easily with the MS60Rs. And overall, I definitely feel like we got a professional look with this setup just using these couple of lights, so I wouldn't hesitate to bring these lights to a shoot where I knew we were gonna have a small crew or just weren't going to have the time for larger lighting setups. And the way that I use the lights for the hair light and the background splash are really exactly how I would use these lights in the real world, even if I was using them in a bigger lighting package. I love the look of undiffused COB lights as hair lights as opposed to larger light sources like panels or tube lights. But my 300-watt lights are usually just way too bright to use for this, even at 1% power. But since these aren't quite as bright, I can dial them in to the exact brightness I want without having to break out scrims or other modifiers. For the hair light, I had it set to about 2% power in this setup. And since they're so small, it's easy to contort them in weird ways that would be difficult with larger lights. Now, let's talk about one of the things that I think really puts these lights in an interesting category: the pricing. These are definitely a high quality professional model of film lighting that requires a respectable investment. One of these lights cost about twice as much as my 100D costs, and the 4-light kit right now is priced at $2,500, which means for the same price as these 4 lights without stands, I could get a Godox M300 Bi, a TL120 tube light, 2 TL30s, 4 C-stands, a flag and scrim kit, plus a bunch of modifiers. And in reality, this package is probably going to be a lot more versatile for you than the MS60Rs in a regular professional shooting situation. So if you're building out your first lighting package, honestly, I'd probably recommend going in a direction like that rather than putting the money into the MS60Rs. Where I feel like these lights really make sense is for filmmakers like me who already have a professional G&E package built out with a set of lights like those. I really feel like where these lights make the most sense is adding them to a kit like that for the situations where you need compact lights that can go in weird places, battery-powered lights for when power isn't available and a generator isn't feasible, dimmer COB lights so that you can fine-tune them more than you can with the bigger options, or for special circumstances where the big package just isn't practical. So if you're like me and you have a more extensive lighting kit already, adding the MS60Rs to your arsenal is a great move. They definitely have my endorsement, and I intend to bring them to literally every big shoot that I do going forward. But if you're building out your first kit, there might be other options for you that would give you more bang for your buck. It all depends on what you already have and how you plan to use them. In reality, the Godox MS60R lights are a fantastic addition to any filmmaker's kit. Filmmaking is so much more about the principles that you implement than the equipment that you use. So no matter where you are in your filmmaking journey, these lights will definitely elevate the production quality of your films. Whether you're adding them to an existing lighting kit or looking for a flexible solution for solo projects, they offer tremendous value. If these lights sound like the right fit for you, check out the first link in the description to get your hands on them.
Now, when I shot that movie back in February using the Godox MS60Rs for a lot of the film, I actually had a scene where I used all 4 lights in the lighting setup, and it was honestly a really good demonstration of how I would really use these lights in the real world, using them in kind of different scenarios, different use cases, but showing all of them off in one lighting setup. So on set, I went ahead and did a quick BTS clip of me explaining, here's how I'm using the lights and that kind of thing, and I've got that linked in the description below, so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in taking a look at, go ahead and check that out.